Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, Eternally Obsessed. And we're going to be continuing our Eternal Character series where I sit down and talk with the creator, and we do one podcast episode for each Eternal. Today, we'll be talking about none other than the sweet, sweet Gilgamesh. And joining me to talk about Gilgamesh, I have Orlane. Orlane, thank you so much for joining and talking about Gilgamesh with me. Would you like to introduce yourself to the podcast?
Hello, I'm Orlane. You may know me as Orlane Dub on TikTok. I post a lot of just like Marvel, DC content mainly, but then also just like random sporadic stuff if I find another interest. Right now, it's Bridgerton. So if you go to my account and you're looking for stuff, guys, I promise I do post about Marvel and DC. But yeah, Eternals is my favorite MCU movie, so I'm very excited for this episode.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me. I know we both found each other on TikTok because we both liked Eternals. So really great to find like fellow Eternal fans. And it's awesome to hear that it's also your favorite MCU movie because it's the same with me. But yeah, I'm Gilgamesh is obviously a character that we unfortunately saw too little of in Eternals, but I feel like there's still a lot to discuss. Specifically, his relationship with Thena and just like the role that he serves in Eternals or in the Eternals group. But yeah, where would you like to start with Gilgamesh, and what particularly drew you to his character, I guess?
So first of all, I like to say like my toxic trait, I feel like, is liking getting very attached to characters that we don't get to see too much of because what we do get to see is like so incredible to me, and then like
Mm,
they're gone, and then I get attached to them and they become one of my favorite characters, but it's
yeah.
like it's just a mess up here. But Gilgamesh was actually like my fourth favorite Eternal. Him and Thena are like literally right next to each other. Like they switch off between three and four very often. But my favorite thing about him was that he's he's obviously very physically, he's a strong human being, or shouldn't say human, but you know what I mean. He's a very strong, powerful being. And his power obviously is the super strength and all of that. But he's also a very vulnerable person, and I feel like too often in media, we'll get like the big, strong guy who, who takes care of somebody else, and like their emotions are kind of shut off. Like we don't really
Hmm.
get to see a more
Yeah.
vulnerable part of it because they're like, oh, this man has to be strong. This is who he is. But
Yeah.
it's like with Gilgamesh, we got to see both of that. Like we know he's strong. We know he can do all of these things, but we also know he's capable of love and compassion and all this vulnerability. And like those little moments that we got to see in the movie really made it like that's part of my favorite parts of the movie as well, but also made him one of my favorite characters.
No, I agree with everything. I think with Gilgamesh, it's like I mean, in many ways, to a lot of people, he reminded us of Hulk just because of he has a lot of like physical strength. But I think where people really loved his character was more just of like how compassionate and funny he was, I would say his like humor was one of the things that really stood out to me. There were a lot of Eternals that are kind and compassionate, but Gilgamesh was like sweet. I don't know how to describe it. I feel like some of the Eternals are kind, but they're not sweet. Does that make sense? But like
I
Gilgamesh
see,
is
I know, I
both.
understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Like I specifically think of the scene after they had to like attack Thena because
Hmm.
she started going a little crazy, and he said that he would stay with her and make sure that she could keep her memories, and it was like this. It was that like it was like a 30-second moment between the two of them, but just like the look that they gave each other and saying that he would take the chance of possibly even having to kill her if things got too bad between the two of them. But it was just like the kindness in his eyes, like the softness and like all of it between the
Yeah.
two of them. That was one of my favorite things ever. I'm
Yeah.
like, and you're like watching like this big dude who's like being down on people all the time, just being like, yeah, I'll take care of her. Of course, I'll protect her. It's like, oh my god.
It's like so I would say he's probably from what I remember, he's probably the most wholesome character I've seen in the MCU so far. Like I can't think of anyone who maybe Thor, actually, like maybe Thor apart from Thor, like I just can't think of someone who's more wholesome than Gilgamesh as of right now. His like you said, he's so sweet, and that one scene that you're talking about with when he like offered to protect Dina. I also think back to the conversation they had in the Amazon rainforest where well he's always like I don't remember exact line, but it's like on every planet or on every place or something. I'll always be by like
Yeah.
along those lines, and it's like he's like you think about that and then you think about their relationship, it's the embodiment of like soulmates. And whether you think it's platonic soulmates or like soulmates, I just think that their bond is something really special. And Gilgamesh is like the heart of the bond, but also in some ways could be the heart of the Eternals themselves, along with, I would say, a couple of the other characters. Gilgamesh is also like the heart of the Eternals.
Yeah, like the relationship between him and Thena, um, I loved that so much. Like when it, like remember when the movie first came out, and you know when it came out on Disney Plus, everyone was just like, "Are they like a couple? Are they
Mm-hmm.
friends? Like just really good friends? Are they a couple?" Like the fact that that was even a conversation, I loved so much
Yeah,
because I personally see them as a romantic relationship. I think I 100% believe they're in love.
me
I
too.
can't see it any other way.
Me
But
too.
I like the fact that people can't really tell because I think like you said, like their bond, it's just like so much deeper than anything. Like as a human being, can we really comprehend? But we're like,
Hmm.
because I think everybody wants that in a partner, regardless if it's a friend or a romantic partner. Like someone who will be by your side no matter what, who will protect you,
Yeah.
who will be there for you, who will support you. Like that kind of thing comes. You want that in all of your relationships.
Yeah.
So you want it regardless. You know what I mean? And so seeing that relationship portrayed on screen and in such like a gentle and like loving way, when people are to the point where people are like, oh my God, like they're such good friends, or it's like, oh my God, that's like couple goals. It's so incredible to watch these like conversations happen. I'm just like, oh my God, we can't even tell. We don't even know. They're
We
just
don't
so
we
like we can't even like comprehend how kind and compassionate they are to each other to the point where we're like, I don't even know what on earth this relationship is. I just love it so much. I just love it.
exactly. It's like, I mean, it's that's exactly what I think too. Like I also do believe that they are romantic, but not like Cersei and Icarus, and not like Druig and Makari romantic either. And like that's what I kind of liked about Eternals is it kind of explored like different types of like romantic love that exists. It's like if you think do think that Thena and Gilgamesh are romantic, like with Druig and Makari, it's a little bit more like the playful, like cheeky type, I feel like flirty. And then with Icarus and Cersei, the way I read it was is a bit more like passionate and like a little bit more sexual type of love, just because of the scenes that they were in. But with like Thena and Gilgamesh, it's like it's that bond. It's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's a protective. I feel like it's more of like a protective type of love. So yeah, it's amazing. And like you said, I think it was really interesting to see how different people read the relationship. I think the reason why I personally thought it was romantic is just because of not like the way that they treat each other, but more like their physical language, like the hand touches, those small things, like the way that he held out his hand for her, literally in the first like opening introduction scene. They're fighting, and then like this is like he doesn't even know that Thena has mad weary. We don't even know Thena. We just see the two of them fighting together, and then she obviously kills the deviant. And he like holds his hand out to her. She grabs it, and then it's like she kind of like leads, and then he just like it's like those types of things. It's like I don't know. I interpret that as romantic. So, and I just think that scene, like,
Definitely.
it's literally the introduction scene, but it's just so incredible to see.
I love that whole first scene for a multitude of reasons, but focusing specifically on Thena and Gilgamesh, I think that's for me part of the contrast of it. In terms of like, you know, the gentleness of his character, but like also the nature of like his power. You
Hmm.
watch these two, you know, people like destroy these deviants. They're going in on them. And then not even 5 seconds later, she gracefully steps down from this monster. And this man just holds his hand out to her. They're like it's like they're walking into a sunset, not like they just killed a giant monster.
Yeah.
And it was just like that contrast between the two things of them fighting in this huge battle and then well, let's sleep together. I don't need to hold your hand. I know I don't need to, but I want to. And it's like those little things that just make my heart flutter. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
No, literally, it's like it's so. I think like one of the things about Gilgamesh and Thena and like kind of speaking to overall Eternals is a lot of the relationships we've seen in the MCU, either they're not toxic, but sometimes there's just like a lack of chemistry, or sometimes like the relationships do have like somewhat of a toxic beginning, maybe, or they're just toxic in general or just problematic to watch. But with like Thena and Gilgamesh, if you do interpret it to be romantic, it's like there's literally nothing toxic about it. It's just a really sweet, wholesome thing to watch on screen. And you can also say that about like the other couples that we see in Eternals. And I think that's what I also really appreciate about the relationship. And I would say they're probably my favorite couple in the MCU for that reason. And it's wild because they probably have like the shortest amount of screen time. Well, actually, except for Julie Macari, but they have like a short amount of screen time, but they still left me at least with such an impact. It's honestly incredible. Like, and it was like the small things, like you said, like the hand holding or, you know, um, him standing up for her, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like when you pay attention, you have to really be. I think that's one of the things with Eternals that you just have to always be paying attention because there's so many little things embedded throughout the story. Like I think I remember you were talking about how you didn't notice that first time you watched the movie when they're sitting and listening to Druig and Thena kind of nudges him awake because he fell asleep. Like that, like those little things too. Like when you're watching it and you're paying attention, you're like, oh God, wait, look at that. That's so cute. And so you get those moments in their relationships are so like contingent on those like moments that you have to really look at. And I really loved that. Like I thought Chloe Zhao did an incredible job with the way that she did these characters and the storyline. I just really loved it. It felt like the most human movie in the
Mm-hmm.
MCU to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think like the thing with Eternals is that it's all in the small details, but unfortunately with like the way a lot of the MCU movies are formulated, which I'm not really saying it's a bad thing, it's always about like the bigger things that are going on. And so maybe part of the reason people didn't enjoy Eternals is because it was might have just been too complex to watch on the first watch, and they didn't want to put in that extra effort to look at the details, which I'm not saying you have to enjoy Eternals because it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea just because of like how slow paced and drawn out it can get, but like it just like blows my mind that like some people say that it's boring or they just find reasons to critique it for when there are like things that are done worse in other movies, and it's like, did you even watch the movie at that point or are you just jumping on the bandwagon? So
Yeah, I noticed like a lot of people don't really care for like the character kind of
mhm.
films. So it's like when you're watching a movie and you're seeing all these characters get all this time, like and to sort of dive into who they are
Yeah,
and stuff. It's like, well, I kind of just want to get to like what's happening. I want to get to the plot kind of
yeah.
thing. So I think it's also like a character driven versus plot driven kind of thing that was happening with Eternals when it first came out. But I loved seeing like those tweets of people being like, I can't wait for like maybe like 3 years. People will look back and be like, Eternals was not as bad as we all said it was. And I'm like, I know. And I'm waiting for that day. I'm waiting for that day when everybody sits down and they rewatch it. And they're like, wow, that was really good. And I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
feel like
yeah,
people will start doing that like once you get more like the Eternals popping up in the other projects and stuff. And definitely they'll be like,
yeah,
okay, I gotta go revisit. Especially because if they like start alluding to certain events in the Eternals, like it's kind of hard to avoid at that point. You do have to watch the movie. So yeah, I think that'll be really interesting to see that like how it connects and how if in the way it does connect, we might see like other characters like Gilgamesh return. Um, so
yes.
yeah, kind of talked about his relationship with Thena. What is there like another point you want to touch when it comes to Gilgamesh?
I just really love like his role as a protector, not even just in terms of Thena, but in terms of the Eternals as
Yeah.
well as a whole. Like there was that scene when they were in the Amazon, and he was like, him and Icarus and Thena, they were all out there, and that deviant's coming, and he's like, go. He's like, no. He's like, go protect the others. He's like, I got this. I was like, Gilgamesh. After I remember the second time I watched the movie, I'm watching that scene. I was like, no. I was like, Icarus, please stay. I was like, I can't do this right now. But like just the fact that like he wants to make sure that other people are taken care of as well before anything else happens. He's like, okay, I can take this. Icarus can do that, and he has Thena as well. So he kind of has like his brain is kind of torn in all these different like directions, but he knows like what his focus is at the same time. So he's
Hmm.
very constantly like putting others ahead of himself. Like
Yeah.
even in that time when Thena was hiding and Deviant starts coming for her, and she's like, what do I do at this point? And he comes in and he saves her, and unfortunately, that leads to his death, which we can just
Did you?
not talk about
Yeah.
right now. But
No, I
Just,
still cry every time I rewatch it and then I see him die because I'm like, he went too soon. Because, like you said, he's literally a protector. We talked about his kindness, his compassion, and it's like all of those traits. And then he dies. And it's like he also dies like halfway through the movie. It's not even like he dies like towards the end. So it's like you get to spend time with him, but it's like he dies like earlier into the film. And then it's just like
yeah,
you're so sad because you're like you're thinking about him and then you're thinking about like Thena and it's like their dynamic together. It's like I feel like I could just do a spin-off series of where I just watch like Gilgamesh and Thena adventures in Australia because I would
exactly.
love that. And part of it too, I think it's like what stood out to me was also his humor, which I mentioned before, because all of the Eternals have their own like distinct like sense of humors, which I appreciate about the movie. But there was just something about Gilgamesh's humor that I always enjoy, and I don't know if it's because if it's like more of like a wholesome type of humor, it's not like super cringy or like quirky, which I'm not saying it like those types of humor styles are bad either, but it's just like I don't know, I kind of appreciate his humor where he was like talking to Drew and he's like, oh yeah, like I asked Tina to put me to sleep once, or it's like, oh, I think I was drunk or something, like when the earthquakes
Yeah.
happen. It's like those small things, and I'm just like, oh, like I don't know. I just really like the jokes he was tell, or the Gilgamesh, like the baby, or like when he was teasing Sprite. It was also great. I was living for
And
it.
he always laughs at his own jokes. I love it. Like the little chuckle he gives after he makes a joke. I'm like, even if nobody else laughs, he's like, yeah, that was good. I'm like, you're
I
just so
know.
like I just want to give him a hug. I want to give him a hug so badly. And I think
I
that's like
do. Same. I
that's
just feel
just so
like he'd give
nice to
such great
see.
hugs. He's like a big teddy bear.
Exactly.
Really
Who could,
teddy bear. And I'm just
beat you
like,
to a pulp, but like
yes. Have you seen
but
the
he won't.
interviews?
That's the thing. Is he
What?
could kill you, but he won't.
He could. He could. But he's kind. He has a good soul. So
Exactly.
rip though. um have you seen
But
like the interviews with him and like Angelina Jolie, I guess like Don Lee and Angelina Jolie? Because they have really good like dynamic together too. Like I feel like they
yes.
balance each other out so well. And it's the most adorable thing to see both of them. And I'm just like, we only got this for one movie. Like I want them I like just want to see the actors together again too, because they really do have like good chemistry. And I remember like during the premiere when I think they like saw each other, the way
Yes.
I just love their interactions together. I was like, it's
When
great.
they saw each other again, that was so cute. I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, hey. I
I'm
was like,
living
oh
for
my,
it.
they
Yeah,
were so cute. I was like,
literally.
and she got so like they get so excited to see each other. I'm like, oh, I
They
love
just have
it.
such
I
good
love this.
energy. And like
Yes.
just it they bond really well. And I think it also like really shows in the movie too. So it's just incredible to see them. And I'm just like, oh, I love Gilgamesh so much. I just wish we got more of him.
Yeah, but like, like they said in the movie, like Erisham literally just creates them. He's like, boom, there you go. They're not real.
Yeah.
They're kind of like
They're not.
little mechanical people.
It's
So he can create another Gilgamesh. Like they've been around for thousands and thousands of years. He brings them around whenever he wants
true.
them to.
But do you think
So if
if
he
that
needs
if
another
he
Gilgamesh,
right, but if we were to bring back Gilgamesh, would it be the Gilgamesh we know, or would it be like Gilgamesh who's programmed to do something else? Is what I'm afraid of.
oh, oh, I don't like
That's what
to think
scares
about
me. That's what scares
that.
me about like him being able to like bring these Eternals back. Is like, okay, he's basing judgment with three of them that fucked up. So if he brings back the other ones, what is he gonna do? Like, how is he gonna bring them back? Is the question. And I'm just like, I hope it's the same, but I guess we just like don't know too much about Erisham himself to like know what he thinks, you know? So
Yeah.
we'll see. But there was a report that came out in February, like some leaker, all K-pop, I believe. He said that Don Lee's scheduled to actually be involved in a Marvel project that's filming in the summer of 2022. I know that Don Lee has also mentioned that I believe that he said he's coming back for projects. It was like an interview and then he said it in Korean and like people translated it. So he has mentioned or alluded to he's coming back. The question is if he's in a project in the summer of 2022, I believe a lot of the Disney Plus shows are being filmed, and then also Blade is in production. Which project do you think he will be in? At least if the summer 2022 thing is true that he is filming something for Marvel.
You know what's interesting is I feel like if he showed up in something in like the next year or two, it would probably be in like a post credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
They would give us like a little bit, be like, "Hey, look who's coming," and then not give us anything with him until for like 2 more years.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
but but Mahershala Ali, who's playing Blade, was the voice in at the end credit scene of Eternals.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for anybody who didn't watch it. Um, so what if like they do a little role reversal? Blade comes out, end credit scene. Gilgamesh comes back.
Gilgamesh comes in. Like maybe, I don't know, like maybe I could think of like, I don't know how Blade's gonna play out, but Blade and the Dark Knight, maybe Moon Knight, depending on how Moon Knight goes. They meet a celestial Erisham, and Gilgamesh comes out with Erisham, or comes out whatever. Like he's there with Erisham. I don't know. I don't know how much they're connecting supernatural to like cosmic, but I would say like Blade
Yeah.
is definitely the most probable one. I also believe like Loki season 2 might be filming this summer, and Loki, which is like multiverse and stuff and variants, we don't
Oh,
know.
that's true.
Yeah, I guess the only thing with like the Eternals is because they're robots, we don't know like robots and they're created. We just don't know if, first of all, are they Nexus beings? Because if the Celestials are Nexus beings, right, at least in the MCU, then they kind of know about the multiple universes. So there would only be one Gilgamesh. But if the celestial beings, like if there's like multiple, if there's like one Airsham for each universe, then it's like, did they also create another Gilgamesh? I don't know. So it could be a variant we see. I guess we'll have to wait.
That's very interesting. That's I don't know. I feel like it's different with Eternal because they are created. Would they have variants?
Mm-hmm. Would they have variants? Like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's just it's weird. Yeah, it's I think the thing about Eternals is that it introduced us to the Eternals, but also there's like so many different questions that can be asked just like about how Eternals are created themselves and about the Celestials and like all of that. It's like I think part of the reason like why there's all of these questions and is because of like how disconnected is also is from the MCU. So it's like we don't know how much the Eternals like operate within the bounds of that are shown in the MCU so far. So I guess we'll see
Yeah.
where he comes. But I definitely agree like Blade might be one probable project for sure. For sure with
Yeah.
him.
And like if Gilgamesh comes, actually, I'm going to say when because I'm speaking it into existence. When Gilgamesh returns, because I need him to,
Yes.
um, I am curious as to like what, like, because when Erisham creates them and everything, he wipes their memories every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So if when Gilgamesh returns, will he not remember the other Eternals? Will they not be the same to him? Like, or will, what kind of programming is going to end up with that? And what exactly would that mean for the Eternals? Because right now they're all split up anyway. Three of them are up in space. A couple of them are with Erisham because they're fucked like right now. And Gilgamesh, is dead. But when he comes back, where exactly is he going to be put? That's my like. Will he be on his own? Is that like a possibility?
I think that's a decision for Erisham to make, you know? I think like it's all up to Erisham. It's like if he wants Gilgamesh to like be someone who like kind of follows his bidding, I think he'd definitely give him more control and probably not allow him to retain his memories. But if it's like in his judgment of Erisham and he's like, well, you guys can still stick together as a family or something, then he might give Gilgamesh his memories. Like, who knows? Like, we really don't know,
Yeah.
right? So I think it just like depends on like the context of like what Erisham wants and what like the purpose of the Eternals will be following because the like there's no sequel that's been confirmed yet, but the way that the Eternals trajectory is looking right now is maybe like the sequel will have a um in the comics they'll have like a Eternals versus Celestials kind of war thing, and the three that are in space right now, their job is to search for other Eternals across like other planets, right? So like maybe those three would like gather other Eternals that they find like, and those are Eternals brought over from the comic books, and then like the sequel could be like Erisham creates Gilgamesh as a soldier or something to like seek out these other
Ooh.
Eternals, and then he wouldn't have the memory. So I yeah, I don't know. It's very up in the air, right? It's pretty ambiguous in like how he would return.
There is, hang on, let me see if I can find this. Um, so I'm trying, because when you say there's no sequel planned yet, right?
Well,
But
there's nothing that's been confirmed because like Shang-Chi
yeah,
has a
exactly.
sequel. Spider
Like Shang-Chi, that got announced in December, which
mm-hmm.
was like 3 months after Shang-Chi came
Yeah.
out, and Eternals came out in November. So in theory, we would have, if we're going by the same timeline, it would have been like February,
February,
March,
yeah.
a sequel would have been like announced or anything.
Yeah.
Um, so my curiosity is it, are they not announcing anything because the Eternals, the next project the Eternals show up in won't be a set like a Eternals 2, will probably be like something else. Like if they, pop up in like an end credit scene or something, or it might just be like a very long time until we see them again because their
Um,
story, because they have a lot of projects coming up too.
yeah, I mean, I definitely do think that there'll okay, I definitely do believe the Eternals will be popping up sooner than we think them to. I mean, like Black Knight is rumored and possibly heavily will cameo in Moon Knight, and I know Black Knight's like not connected to the world of Eternals, but he was introduced in Eternal, so that still means like something for like a lot of
Yeah.
Eternals fans. And then a lot of like there were like definitely like rumors and leaks of like them coming up in Thor: Love and Thunder. So I definitely do think that we'll be seeing them in like Thor: Love and Thunder, maybe Guardians, maybe the Marvels, like all of these cosmic MCU movies. So definitely, I think maybe the reason they didn't announce a sequel yet is because they're kind of waiting for them to start showing up in other projects.
Yeah.
Hopefully, isn't there like a D23 or like a convention happening later this year where they might be announcing
Yeah.
new projects? I feel like that would be the correct place to go about it. Oh, cross your fingers, because I was also
I
thinking,
wanted to go to D23 so bad. And then I was
really,
like,
yeah.
I want to do it like low key. I
I
want
know
to go.
I want to go once in my life. I want to go
I
to
know, like it looks
D23.
like it'll be so much fun. Like you get all this Disney news in like one weekend. Like I want to do that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, hopefully we can hope for D23, but I don't see them not steering away from an Eternal sequel. Like I feel like I don't think they're gonna like take out the Eternals just because it like did bad. It still did decent. It just didn't maybe go to
Yeah.
expectations, but still broke a 400 million at the box office. It made more globally than Shang-Chi did, so it met its purpose of being a global movie rather than like a concentrated movie on something. So
Yeah,
I
that's what I was
guess we'll
gonna say. I was like,
see.
the global audience was incredible on that
The
one.
global
So
audience, right? The global audience reaction was pretty incredible compared to the US reaction, which doesn't matter because it's supposed to be a global movie in the first place. So hopefully, also, I think the chances of getting a sequel is less of like Eternals not doing well, but more of like, is Chloe Zhao going to come back and direct the sequel? Because I really
yeah,
don't
I
think
don't
Kevin
trust anyone
Feige.
else with that.
I don't. I really don't
I
either.
want her back, please. I'm
I
begging.
really don't. At least if she doesn't direct it, I hope like she's at least in the writer's room again and like has some hand
Yeah.
in the say that the way the characters are going to be presented because um I don't know if she'll like take on doing the Eternals again. I hope she would, but just in the event she might not, I still hope that like at least she'll have input. But I also don't think Kevin Feige would want to give it to any other director but Chloe because they're gonna like mess up the
Yeah.
tone that the Eternals have set for themselves, which is like more of like this slower, more like mature tone compared to other MCU films. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Hopefully he's in the sequel.
Yeah.
Hopefully there is a sequel.
Come on, Gilgamesh, don't let me down. Please
Don't let
come
me down.
back. Come back to me.
Same. One final question. In the event that Gilgamesh would have been alive, which Avenger do you want him, or which event, not which Avenger, which MCU character as of right now would you want to see him interact with the most? And since he is dead, I guess you can pick someone who's dead or alive since he's not with us currently.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. Let me think. Who would I like to see Gilgamesh? You know what I would love to see? Gilgamesh and Scott Lang and
No,
Ant-Man.
you're so
I
right.
think that would be a very interesting pair because I mean they're both like very kind at heart, you know, kind of silly in that kind of way, but they're both protectors and in the way that like Scott, you know, he lost so many years of his daughter's life and in that
Yeah.
way that like he wants to, you know, make it up to her and protect her. I think Gilgamesh, when he does come back, I'm going to continue to use when. Um, and if he does have his memories in that feeling of like knowing his family was kind of taken from him in that way in his life, I think they would have like a nice little bond. And I think they just have
Yeah.
like a lot of fun together. I'd love to see that.
No, I like fully agree. Like Scott Lang's a really good choice because, like you said, they're both protectors. They're also both like funny and definitely do love playing pranks. I feel like, you know, the way that like I
Yeah.
feel like Gilgamesh and Scott would team up to play pranks against like someone that like who really annoys them. So whether that be Sprite or I'm trying to think of like an Avenger that Scott would annoy the most. I'm like, I can't even. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely say Scott Lang and Gilgamesh. That's a very probable, very like very dynamic pair. I think I would not pick another person. The only other like person I can think of that maybe I would like to see Gilgamesh with, um, would be T'Challa, but that's
Oh,
not probable, unfortunately. Um, but I don't know. I just think like similar to Scott Lang, like T'Challa is a protector, and he's also very kind at heart. From what we like, what we saw of him in the MCU. So I always like, I imagine like they would just be having like those, like they're very kind-hearted people. So I
yeah.
would have loved to see them together. Yeah,
That would have been really nice.
yeah. Well, I don't have anything else to say about Gilgamesh. Do you?
I think I covered everything.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode to talk about Gilgamesh. I hope you enjoyed it and hopefully we get to see him again. And thank you so much to everyone who listened and about Gilgamesh. Let me leave your thoughts on Gilgamesh and this episode in the comments. Yeah, make sure to follow, rate, subscribe, listen to this podcast wherever you are. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you guys have a good day.